Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Hey Ranjeet, I'm doing great. How about you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what is the featured question today we are taking?
Excellent. Yeah, so our feature question is how can I demonstrate original contributions for my EB1A green card application given that my experience has been solely in corporate jobs?
Wonderful. Now, before we take up that question, Patrick, we have one guest today, Akesh, actually. So, Akesh, if you're listening, after responding to this question, we will have you on board and we'll take up your question. So, just wait for us. So, Patrick, coming back to the question that how can I demonstrate original contribution? It's a original contribution. I feel is one of the most interesting criterias, one of the most toughest as well as most difficult one. And before I respond to the question, let me tell you something interesting about this particular criteria, which is more of a. This is not a kind of a rule or regulation that USCIS has come with or anything like this, but it is just an empirical observation which I have made after having studied over thousand cases, having seen at least 50 to 60 EB1 achievers. There's something very interesting. If you go for original contribution criteria, and if you are kind of you fulfill it, okay, the chances are that you will get your EB1A petition approved. But it indirectly implies that what I'm trying to also tell you is that if somebody has gone for original contribution criteria, at the same time, you know I have yet to see a single RFE or a NOID where the original criteria has been approved and the petition is being challenged. So basically, it implies that if your original criteria goes through, you are good. You should be good. But also, let us also understand it is the most difficult criteria. You should not go for it if you are don't have any original contribution. Don't try to fit in your original contribution.
Yeah.
Now, here comes a very interesting question that if you have a corporate job, and how do you fill original contribution? Because this original contribution is not to your company, but it is essentially to your field of expertise, whatever you are choosing. So this can manifest in terms of identifying what impact your work has done outside your company in the industry. That's the first important thing. You cannot come up and say that, look, I work for the company, it helped me $1 million, I made a big strategy, a business plan or something. No, it has to be something like you created. Let's say, for example, you are working with OpenAI, you create some kind of a contribution that allows people to use plugins, which was there before. Now obviously it doesn't have plugins, but you could add plugins, or you are creating an app which can help something which other people are also kind of replicating it. So that could possibly be one of the ways in which you can do it. But if you are like when you say impact on the field, you have to see the larger impact it has had on other businesses outside the scope. It has to be to the field. It cannot be just, if you are working in a corporate job, 9 to 5 job, and kind of you did some kind of a coding that helped company to do it. Second way to do it is if the work that you are doing is patented. So if you have a patent, that could another beautiful way of doing it, or a system or process that can be replicated. We have a very detailed process, kind of a matrix to evaluate an original contribution. I would urge you to kind of look at that. There is a Forbes article on that. We'll give you the link below on that. So this is how, even if you are working in a corporate job, you could potentially use, even apply for this criteria. But as I said, that this is a very, very, rigid criteria to be with, and just do it with caution. I would say that in consultation with your lawyer. So that would be my take, Patrick. I hope that this helps.
Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it should help a lot.
Wonderful. So I will take Akesh on the stage now.
Awesome.
So hi Akesh, how are you?
Hey,
Hey
Ranjeet.
Akesh.
Hey, Patrick.
Hey.
How are you?
Wonderful. So what's your question?
So just want to see, since we have only choose 3 criteria among 10, right, for the EB1A, and contribution is one of the part of it, and what makes more weightage of this criteria when compared to the other ones?
You're talking about original contribution?
Original contribution.
Okay, now let's understand, Akesh, that technically there is no weightage per se. Let's understand. USCIS would view every criteria as even. I mean, let's get it. There is no weight that is allocated to it. But what I'm trying to tell you is in my observation that this becomes one of the most toughest criteria because you have to prove your contribution to the field, not to the, kind of your company or anything. My second take to your question would be, I mean, I always suggest people that create a persuasive story where the criteria would fit into your story rather than the other way around.
Got it. Thanks for answering, Ajit. I heard there is a myth like, when an USS is verifying a profile, and if I matches 3 criteria among 10, and they do a second evaluation about the final metrics, and that's
Yes.
the original contribution comes into consideration.
No, original contribution is just one of the criteria actually.
Okay.
So it is just one of the criteria.
Yeah, I understand, but I heard, while I was researching about the EB1A, went some articles and heard like that in the final metrics, the USIs will give more weightage about the original contribution.
No, it is not. It would. Would not believe so.
Okay.
How it happens is, first there is a two-step process. It comes from a case law called Kasarian. So the whole idea is that whether you kind of, let's say for example, where you touch the criteria, you meet your criteria, they would just look at that actually. So let's say for example, in judging criteria, for example, they would see there is a beautiful case, I must tell you, that AAO case which says that somebody was interviewing people for some positions in his company, and he kind of was claiming that fulfills the judging criteria. So from a USCIS perspective, it met the judging criteria, but when they analyzed it deep dive into final merit determination, what they would look at 3 things. They would look at sustained acclaim and the totality of evidence. Sustained acclaim would mean that it's not necessary by function of time, by virtue of intensity. Sustained, I would rather, and with benefit to the United States. So whatever you are doing, that's the second level. And you are raising a very interesting point. We have seen people joining the program who have had even 3 criteria, 5 criteria, even 8 criteria getting approved, but yet getting their cases rejected in the final merit determination. This has no bearing on an individual criteria per se, whether original contribution they would look at only. No, that is not necessarily true. They would look at all the evidences and all the criteria put together, and then they would award you, EB1A. That's how it would operate, Rakesh.
Okay, awesome. That clears my question and the myth as well, Ranjit. And when while you're saying about the judging criteria, right? Even I have interviewed some of the senior engineers in my company, and I also reviews the papers of some conference overall the world. Let's say a conference from BITS Pilani, for example, from India. Some students and some people submits their project as a documentation, and I have received an email to review their papers and give a judgment or comments on it. So combine this interview within my organization and reviewing the papers from a conference. Will this satisfy the judge criteria? I know this call is dedicated to contribution, but
no, it is not called. It is that was only a featured question actually.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can ask. We have multiple other people who have sent us their questions, so they are coming with that. So don't worry about that. Now, having said this, in my view, to be very fair and honest, I would not suggest that this fulfills the sustained acclaim part of it. So when you apply for with these 2 aspects, and what would be your expertise? That's very important. Can you tell me that?
Into cloud engineering.
Okay, so I would still suggest this would meet the criteria but not fulfill the sustained acclaim. Okay, now for sustained acclaim, it is not the plurality of it or you do 10 times the same thing that is going to help, but the intensity of it in a way that if you were to do this, let's assume, I'm not saying that you have to do it or you should do it, but let us say if somebody is doing it at a master's level course or judging people at a more higher standard, not just students. Can you do this? Suppose if you have done a book review also, you have been peer reviewing some, let us say, research papers also in your field of expertise, that would intensify, and that, kind of plurality of it across various ways of doing things, I would say that, rather than just one or two initiatives. I can see, RFA coming towards sustain. You may still fulfill the criteria in my perspective, but it may not meet the, it may meet the criteria, but not the final merit determination.
Okay. So the peer review of a book will have a more weightage.
Yes, and multiple things. You see, let's understand one thing, Akesh. Let's say you have done a peer review. You have interviewed. Now, when you interviewed, at what level you interviewed? Oh, you interviewed something, creating certain evaluation structure that was very unique, and the people whom you selected have performed very well. You get what I'm saying? They have been one of the top performers, star performers of the company. Now, let's see, when you keep generating these kind of evidences and records, documents on records, it's not about the act that you do or initiative that you take is going to help you, but the impact that you create by virtue of the work that you have done is more important. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes, Ranjeet.
I'm just being hypothetical. Let's say you are sitting on a Nobel committee. Just hypothetical. Okay, one that would meet everything. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just that that's the highest level of judging that you can do. Am I right? That's something that you are selecting people for Nobel Prize. There one judging will prove everything, but we are not there yet. So we have to break it down and prove in the plurality of it that it's a sustained.
Got it. And also, if I reviewed as a peer review for a book, right, that can also be included in the contribution?
No. I would still put that as a judging, actually.
Okay.
Because your original contribution to the field is your contribution, not somebody else's contribution that you reviewed. Are you getting what I'm saying? And original contribution manifests in two ways. First is that I just responded to the question that you are in a corporate job, and that takes into original contribution. Second is that if somebody is a researcher and writes a paper or research article, and that can come also as original contribution if it is really original and it has had a good impact.
Got it. In that case, if a person writes some papers in the journals, right, that can also be considered, right, as a contribution.
Okay. That is, otherwise that will be a scholarly article criteria,
right,
by default. Okay. But finally, let's also understand that it was Einstein's one single paper, which was photoelectric effect, that got him a Nobel Prize, not his entire field. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So if it is in your, you see, when you are going for an original contribution through a scholarly article or through as a critical role or a corporate employee, what has been the impact on the field will have to get demonstrated. Not just your act is not important. So one of the ways for a scholarly article to be successful is that how many citations you have. But citations are not mandatory, actually. Even if somebody gets an expert opinion on that, that might be good. But the whole question that USCIS might like to ask you is, well, you have written a beautiful article, Akesh, that's wonderful. But what has been the impact of that article on the field?
So that's where the citation comes into picture.
But citation is just scholarly article. That citation is that somebody has just cited your work. But what has been the citation is just one of the metrics for that. So, for example, let us say you write and give me an example that I can tell you. Give me an example of some article in your field. I will be more specific, then that will help you.
Let's say if I write an article about the cloud security and give some important points like how this can be secure, cloud can be secured in a more rash way. If I write a journal and I have like 100 citations, for example.
No, forget citations. Citations will just fulfill your they are not even mandatory. But even if citations are important, you write an article and then whatever you have said has been implemented. Let's say tomorrow Google implements it or some other companies implement it, and they say that this has really created a good impact. This is a pioneer work that has helped us, actually. Are you getting what I'm saying now?
Yeah.
That will be, and you get a letter from those companies also saying that Akesh's paper has been wonderful and it has really kind of transformed the way cloud engineering would operate in the future. Then that would be an original contribution. Through that means your one single paper would fulfill that requirement, provided you have such success metrics and evidences to prove that.
Okay. So till now, before this section, I was thinking, writing journals and getting citations, or else writing a book and published in Amazon or anywhere. That might helpful for the contribution thing, but I don't think that's a single.
No, I want to be very fair to you. You are right now, actually, that it won't meet the criteria. It may barely touch a certain other elements of the criteria. But because even in original contribution, you don't have to meet the criteria. Again, you have to establish sustained acclaim there also. Remember that.
Got it.
Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's important. So just please bear that in mind. Any question?
No, that's all, Ranjeet.
So wonderful. So wish you all the best on your EB1A journey. And
Thanks, Akesh.
yeah, thank you. Bye. So that was Akesh, and so I think we are running out of time, but let us take one or two questions more, Patrick.
Sure. I'm going to start with the one because you're meeting with this person sometime this next week. So I'm going to start with this one. My question is about the significance of USA interest. When POTUS releases funding information of your area of domain, does that claim as a national interest?
Okay. I mean, obviously, we don't know the expertise, we don't know the field, we don't know the amount of funding. I mean, we are just talking based on a very little information what we have.
I think the example he gave me was battery manufacturing.
Absolutely. So, I mean, first, I would always like to, define the expertise in the national interest based on the merit of the expertise itself without relating to any funding, because you can get EB1A without POTUS having issued any funding or not. That's besides the point. This may aid you 5%, actually. I would say that 5 to 7%, this might be added, but there are other meritorious dispositions to prove national interest, that what the need that you have to create, that what is the, kind of merit for US to have you based on that expertise. So I would just leave it at that. And that is just one of the feathers in the cap, I would say that POTUS is releasing some funding. I would not, that would not make it solely important. Because there could be some other considerations for POTUS giving that also. So, I mean, that's absolutely fine.
It would just be one part of the argument that you could make there.
Absolutely. But as I said, that there are people who got EB1A from the program and otherwise we have seen. But, I mean, every field may not get POTUS funding also. So
right. Yeah. So that alone does not get you there. So then he just asked a follow-up question. During his research, he came across that the new ruling party may delete these fundings. Does that affect the significance of the domain now that the funding goes away? I think you did kind of answer that though too in what you just said.
Yeah, it was just a feather in the cap.
Yeah.
So if the feather is not there, still it is still the cap. So I would just say that it would not make any material impact because the field is still relevant.
Right.
And I would not even kind of take up that issue. I would just say that it was done. There is a documentation to prove that. I mean, we are not getting into the political considerations of the debate of it. But I think I would just like to stick to it here that, the fact that it is being considered, the field based on the merit, and you have to make a case. For example, today, if you are in semiconductor industry, AI industry, you are in battery development or power engineering. So those kind of things are definitely needed. Whether POTUS gives funding or not is not irrelevant here right now. Mm-hmm. Funding is for a different purposes. I mean, there could be because the industry needs certain support or something, or healthcare, for example. I mean, you may just need them. But there are other such fields wherein the funding may not be there. I don't think there's a funding by POTUS on AI, for example. Still, it is one of the most important dynamic fields, or data science for that matter, or software, depending on. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does, absolutely. One more, or are we good to go? What would you?
I think let's take a last question.
Perfect. I'm applying for EB1A, and my profession is Principal Technical Program Manager. Has anyone else applied with this same professional role and got EB1A approved?
Okay, I would like to just take a pause here and just try to bring in that Technical Program Manager is not a field of expertise.
Right.
Okay, it is just a title. Tomorrow you could be Chief Executive Officer. For example, when I applied for my own EB1A, I was Chief Executive Officer of Financial Planning Standards Board in India. So I would not like to kind of use that as my expertise. Being a Chief Executive is not my expertise, but financial planning, education and regulations is. So I would rather prefer to use my expertise. But yes, answering your question, yes, we have had people of multiple titles who got this EB1A, and title would be completely irrelevant for this purpose. In fact, to go a step further, I always tell people that you are not your title, you are not your qualification, and you are not the amount of money that you make. In fact, what you are without that. If today you are stripped of your qualifications, your jobs, your business titles, all your wealth, what you remain is your expertise. So I hope that kind of answers all the questions. And so thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you very much, Akesh, for joining us today. And it's been wonderful. So if you have any more questions in the future, please write to Patrick or me. We're happy to take you here. If you want to join the show, we'll be happy to take you here. And if you have any further questions or any personalized discussions, or you want to join the next week program, please write to us and click the link that will be given below. So wish you all the best, guys, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.